Good morning, everybody. It's a beautiful morning. All right, I don't want to scare anybody away. Let's get down to the story here. First of all, thank you, everybody, for supporting my channel. Let's just leave it at that. God bless you all. The ticker's going up. Okay. I like watching Mikey Scars, RJ Roger. They got a good show over there. Mikey Scars ran with John Gotti and Sammy the Bull. And RJ Rogers, a great interviewer. On this podcast or this video, they have RJ Roger, Mikey Scars, three-way screen, and Anthony Cardinelli, high-profile lawyer that handled many cases for high-profile clients. And he's in his 70s now. And he comes out and does an interview, hour-long interview, okay? Now, folks, I'm not the best best technical person out there and everything. And I'll try to put the thing up to the screen and get this done. But follow along what's going on and what really happened when Sammy the Bull turned on John Gotti. Now, there's been tons and tons of videos, social media, everything else, who's lying, who's telling the truth, all this speculation. And here's a guy that's been rubbing elbows with them from the beginning. And he's a senior citizen, well-spoken, from New York City. And he was part of the defense team for many of the trials. And you just got to follow along with what the guy's saying. This is haphazard. I can put the microphone up to the thing, but it's on Mikey Scars' channel with RJ Roger. And so it's because Sammy the Bull says, John Gotti said, "You take the rap, Sammy. The streets need me, and you take the rap." Bull crap. John Gotti always took it like a man. That's Sammy the Bull Gravano. The more you hear, the more you hate. So, all right, this is RJ Roger. Let's get right on into it.
RJ Roger, no excuses. Now, before we start the show, I wanted to pop on to leave a disclaimer. In the show that you're about to watch, myself and Michael, we sit with acclaimed lawyer Anthony Cardinelli, lawyer that represented John Gotti in the famous case between he and Sammy the Bull. Now, in this show, we discuss controversial claims made by Sammy, in which Sammy tells this story about this meeting that no one ever knew about, where John comes to Sammy and says, "Hey, Sammy, we're going to work with the lawyers and we're going to put the rap on you. We're going to make you look like an animal. You're going to go to jail and I'm going to go free because the streets needs the boss." Okay? Now, no one ever knew about this meeting, and these are highly controversial claims made by the guy that went free against the guy that died in a supermax prison, chained to a bed, choking on his own spit, and died in that condition. So, now, Sammy's evidence is that there is a tape that exists between F. Lee Bailey and Jerry Capisci, in which Bailey is making these claims, okay? So, the position of the show is that a tape may actually exist. We have not seen it. I can't find it. Michael can't find it. Cardinelli can't find it. But for the sake of the show, let's take the position that the tape exists.
There's no tape.
Why F. Lee Bailey would make these claims, I don't know. I asked them to Cardinelli. You're about to hear his answer. However, it's a moot point. Okay? Even if a tape exists, we take the position that it still does not validate what Sammy says. Sammy says he had a meeting with John. John told this to him. However, Diane Sawyer asked Sammy directly. His answer was not what he's claiming now. He was asked directly by Peter Moss in his autobiography. Direct questions that came from him by John Gleason. 302's cross-examination. At no place did Sammy ever make these claims.
Never brung it up.
Now, where everybody who could validate this stuff is dead. So, once again, in closing, we take the position that a tape may exist, but the tape does not validate these claims. And we'll break this down in further detail in the show that you're about to watch. All right, this is No Excuses with Michael the Leonardo. I'm your host,
Mikey Scars.
Roger. And with today's show, we have special guest, Anthony Cardinale. I would give my own introduction, but his resume is so extensive. I'm just going to pitch it to you, Tony, and have you tell me a little bit about yourself.
Good to see you, Anthony. It's been a long, long time. And it's been long. Now, esteemed person like yourself in this
Spit it out, Mikey.
genre world that we live in today, we need some real factual basis on some history of the Gambino family and machinations of the Gotti trial with Gravano as a witness. And there's no better expert than you. You are the person that's going to tell you that was in there. You don't pull any punches. You're a straight guy. You're from the street.
Great lawyer.
And I always thought of you. Attorney second.
Great legal mind.
And, I know we're going to get the true facts here. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And you indulge us by coming on here. This world of this mob genre and factual history-based stuff is laying on your shoulders right now with one of the most...
The only time you'll ever see it is now.
So all the misinformation out there, other voice. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and you tell the world what really happened in that case.
I grew up on the west side in Manhattan, on 47th and 9th Avenue. My dad and his brothers had a restaurant on 47th between 8th and Broadway. And I grew up there until I went to college in Pennsylvania and then later law school in Boston. When I was in Boston in law school, I started working with F. Lee Bailey, my second year of law school and my third year of law school.
OJ trial.
I was involved right out of law school with the Patty Hearst case, the appellate portion of that, and then later the Los Angeles aspect of her trials. From there, I worked with Bailey for another 5 years, and we tried cases together all over the country. That was a time that Bailey was really flying pretty high after the Hearst case. We represented Hotel Restaurant Workers Union. We represented the chairman of the Navajo tribe. We represented the Attorney General of New Mexico. We were involved in a lot of pretty major federal trials. I had become aware that, and I have not and will never watch any of the stuff he's spewing out on YouTube or books he's written or anything, just because I know what a liar and piece of crap he is. I mean, he is the devil incarnate, if you will.
Talk to me.
And I could go on forever about that, but let's talk about what we're here to talk about, Gravano and the liar that he is. So, Gravano absolutely got to a point in November. Remember now, he let's go backwards, okay, in the timeline. They get indicted, I believe, in December of let me look at my notes here. December 11th. They're arrested December 11th, 1990. All right. And in July of 91, so we're going, they're in there, 7-8 months by that time. The tapes have been played, like these tapes that everybody's, he's saying, that John was, trying to do this and do that. They were played at the bail hearing. So everybody knew from day one just how bad these tapes were. Gravano knew from that day, not months later, not November, not when John supposedly said, I'm going to throw you under the bus. That's complete and utter bullshit. He knew what was on those tapes from the very first hearing in court. And at that time, he was represented by Shargell, I believe. Cutler was representing John, and I don't know who was representing Lacasio at the time, but he got booted too later. That's how as I said earlier, how I got involved in the case. So in July 26th of 1991, Cutler and Shargell, the ruling comes down. Cutler and Shargell, you're out. You're on these tapes. You're really basically part of the family. You're not an attorney. You're part of the group that we're indicting. And they fought it, and then they got booted. And it was after that time that people were interviewed to become successor counsel to Shargell and to John, to Cutler. So what happens is, and I went back, so I'm sure about these dates, because it really, as far as I'm concerned, puts a lie to anything that Gravano says about a meeting with F. Lee Bailey that I'm going to get to in a minute.
All right, folks.
July 26th.
Okay, my hand's getting tired. This is Bush League and everything that I'm trying to do it like this. But I'm just going to put the microphone to the computer, and then you could hear, who the voices are, Mikey Scars and RJ Roger. But let's hear the dialogue from Anthony Cardinelli. So you're getting the gist of it. High-profile lawyer, worked with F. Lee Bailey. F. Lee Bailey was a rock star back then, high-profile cases. And Anthony Cardinelli was on the defense team for a lot of these high-profile cases, and John Gotti and Sammy the Bull Gravano. So let's continue.
91, Cutler, Shargell, DQ. Less than a week later, mind you, or a little more than a week, on August 2nd, Albert Krieger is in for John Gotti, and Ben Bronfman is in for Gravano. So we're talking about a 1-week window, months into the case. All those tapes have been listened to, all those transcripts have been delivered. Everybody knows what's on those tapes, particularly the guys who are on those tapes. Sammy, John, Frankie, they all know what's on there. And what happens, in my view, is that Sammy, nobody's fool either. Obviously, he didn't get to where he was in life without having balls and brains. I mean, I'm not trying to take that away, despite the fact that how he used those balls sometimes was wrong, like killing his brother-in-law because the guy was gay. I mean, there was no other reason. And I know he gives some cockamamie reason about why he did it. It was an embarrassment. That's why he did it. And a number of other ones that I don't want to get into. But
we know.
He was a treacherous guy his whole life. I mean, you know better than anybody. If he had an angle to play on you, he's going to play it. Am I wrong?
Till today. Same way till today. Not Jake.
No, that's Mikey Scars speaking, who rock and rolled with them for a long time. Di Leonardo, Mikey Scars.
They don't change their spots, do they? All right? This is his whole life. He's been like this. Let me find that angle, and I'm going to get myself through there, and I'm going to survive this way, and I'll do anything to survive. I'll do anything other than live up to what the oath I took. And again, I'm not here to be a cheerleader or anything like that. But I do know that this guy could.
Now, for all you viewers out there that hear all these YouTube personalities, mob personalities, and it's entertainment, and some don't care about what really happened. They just like the entertaining stories. But some of you folks out there really want to know the blood and guts and would like to know the truth on some of these things. And you'll never, again, hear from a lawyer, one of the best in the world, you'll never hear the inside scoop on what actually went on behind the scenes. And Anthony Cardinale was one of the best in the world, and he was there on the spot, and he'd probably just do this one-time video, and that's it. But very interesting in what he's got to say, and you folks take it for however you want to take it. So hit the like, share, and subscribe button. Bad move right there, wasn't it?
In due time. By that time, he was rolling good. He had all blue skies ahead. He had all the construction stuff that he was killing people to get, and John was getting blamed for.
Yeah.
Everything was going great. He probably, I don't know how big big a stack he had somewhere, but that's when he starts to realize, wait a minute, this case ain't going to go good.
What he's saying is Sammy the Bull had all these hustles, killing everybody to get the big contracts, big deals. Like Anthony says, blue skies ahead. He's on top of the world, got millions sitting, hiding everywhere else, and now he's up against this case.
They're not stupid. You don't get to those positions if you're stupid. And John, let me give you an example. I mean, I've met a lot of very smart people in my life. I've met a lot smarter than me. And John was one of the most intelligent people I've ever been around. And I'm including,
lawyers,
law professors. I'm talking about politicians. I'm talking about heads of giant corporations. I'm talking about anybody that I've come across in my 72 years of life. And he was one of the top, if not the top three, certainly in the top five. And you don't get to be in his position unless you have that kind of brain. You don't get to be in any of these guys' positions unless you do, like I said earlier. But one of these guys was really treacherous, and that was Sammy. Figuring out, and again, just go by his past, you can see where he wound up, why this happened. By November, he starts to realize, this is going to be terrible. And not only that, I'm going to look like the real bad guy here because the tapes that you guys have gone over, where John is basically saying, what are we doing here? Where are we going? Every time this guy makes a partner, he kills him. And then I get blamed for it. We got to straighten this out. This has all got to come to a head. We got to get back to what we're supposed to be doing. This ain't the way things are supposed to be working.
Yes, John Gotti tells Sammy, hold the phone here, bro. Every time somebody gets killed and whacked, John Gotti's going to get blamed for it. And this is just terrible. You got to slow down, Sammy. You're being real cute over here.
This isn't the Cosa Nostra I know, or what it's supposed to be. So Sammy's listening to all this, and he realizes, oh my God, this ain't going to go good. But I got an ace in the hole. Here's my ace, the Castellano murder. Because I will tell them a bullshit story, and it is bullshit from beginning to end. I will tell them a bullshit story. They will believe it because they want to believe it. They don't even care if it's impossible for him and John to be in a car across the street from Sparks, across 2nd Avenue, in the middle of rush hour, Christmas time, pre-Christmas, in a bus lane, staying there for 15, 20 minutes while they wait and watch the thing happen, and then supposedly Sammy drives him by so John can look and see that he's actually dead. That's bizarre.
How crazy.
It's dramatic, but it's bizarre, and it's frankly impossible. Impossible.
The feds will believe anything Sammy tells them.
I wound up getting in trouble with this judge so many times in that John's case. Among them was they had a witness, the only eyewitness, only guy. And he said, I heard the shots, and I turned and I ran towards the shots. Okay, I'm like, wait, but were you in the Army? What are you, a special forces guy? I mean, what? Everybody else screwed. You're gunshots. You go down or you get out of the way. And maybe it gets you a shot in the ass, but your head's down. So this guy testifies that he recognized, I think he said Tony Roach as one of the guys. He picks out, and of course now Sammy knows. Let me put him in here because there's at least some corroboration to this bullshit I'm about to tell. And so This guy, again, I got in the case late. I didn't have a chance to do the work I wanted to do, all told. But when I hear this guy's story, I'm like, wait, something's wrong with this. And so I started looking at his paperwork, and I'm looking at it. I'm trying to figure out, they got him hidden someplace, where he, I have the 302s, but I don't know where he is. And I pick up this 302, and I turn it over, and when they blacked out in the front, I could read the back. I read where he lives. And it was right there. I was like, oh, okay. So I sent an investigator I know in San Francisco to find out about this guy, because he used to work in San Francisco, then he went to Oregon someplace. He comes back with all kinds of information that this guy was fired for robbing 2 different people he worked for, that he had a bunch of phony names. It was all kinds of stuff. Now, of course, I didn't have that when he was on the stand. And of course, the first thing the judge does, he wants to hold me in contempt for going out and trying to find out that I use investigators to find out where the witnesses are to go after them or to scare them or whatever. And I'm like, hey, pal, hold on a minute. See this? You see this? Here's his address. What do you want me to do? Throw it out? And he wouldn't let me put him back on the stand because, again, anything that would help John wasn't going in that case. So Gravano knew that that's my ticket out of here. And he concocted a story. He told his story. They believed it. Again, it's like, it's true because they believed it to be true. They needed it to be true, and they needed that particular count. And that's how he makes his deal. And he knew that from the first weeks in jail. Once he looked at that, once he heard those tapes, they were played in the bail hearing. It's not like all of a sudden it's this, the stuff gets handed to him, and it dawns on him. So now let's get to Bailey. Because I understand that this piece of crap is saying that Bailey was in a meeting with him and John and Frankie, where supposedly John says in words or substance, don't worry, we're going to win this case. But Bailey was supposedly brought there, according to Jerry Capici, about how he supposedly talked to Bailey a month before Bailey dies, when Bailey was in no shape to talk to anybody. He was on life support practically a month before he died, and it was dying from massive cirrhosis to the liver, problems with his brain. No way he had a conversation with this guy a month or so before he dies. Impossible. We'll get to that in a minute. But what happens, according to Gravano, as I understand, and again, I won't watch or read any of the things that come out. And I also understand that we're going to get to it, that despite the fact that none of this is any of his books, none of it's any of his testimony, none of it's anywhere. And by the way, when better to use it other than when you're getting cross-examined at John Gotti'S trial to say he was going to try to put the thing on me. He was trying to throw me under the bus. That's why, why am I doing this? Because he was going to do it to me, so I did it to him first. Something like that. If he had that, he would have used it. That's it. Period. End of story. Anywhere he testified, whether it was in front of Congress or any trial or anywhere, he would have used it. This story, where it comes from, I have no idea, but I can tell you one thing. It's a complete lie. It is absolutely, without question, against my known facts about the man John Gotti. And that I spent a lot of time, as I said. Not only did I spend time with him during the course of the trial, following the trial, I saw him almost once a month until he moved to Springfield. I would spend at least one day a month when he was in Marion. Spend hours with him, 2 days in a row, usually. So I know him. So as far as I'm concerned, that story is against everything I know about the man, my known fact group of facts. It's also against common sense. If you knew John, you knew nothing about John, but you knew everything about his past and the other trials he was involved in, and even his public statements or whatever people were saying, the thought that John Gotti would have ever told Sammy Gravano and Frank Locascio, you guys are going to take the heat. You guys are going to take the fall here. I'm going to stay on the street. And that's how we're going to do it. And supposedly Gravano is now saying that's the reason I decided to go and say, okay, because this is going to go bad. Listen, it absolutely makes no sense. Nothing changed. Nothing changed from the day they got arrested to the day he left there in November. That was always the same set of facts. Why didn't he go in September? Why didn't he go, when I say September, why didn't he go a month earlier or like soon after the trial, after the indictment came down? It makes no sense. The story makes no common sense. So it's against common sense. It's against known facts about John Gotti'S personality and his thought process. And it's impossible. It's an impossible story. And that he would have said that in front of a lawyer. Now, I'm not saying, again, I have a problem. I've been trying to get back and after we had a conversation about what this guy is saying about a meeting where supposedly John says in front of Bailey, in front of the co-defendants, that he's going to throw them under the bus. That, I started to go back and look at, wait a minute, could this even be possible within that week period of time between the two disqualifications of Shargell and Cutler and the new guys coming in, Krieger and Brodman. And is it possible that he went up to the MCC? It's possible, but he's dead. I can't, and believe me, months before he died in April of 2021, right there, in 2021, April of 2021, Bailey's dead. And according to Gravano, this meeting, I guess, takes place between July 27th and August 2nd. Could he have been there? Possible. Can't check on it. I checked with his partner, who is a long-term, a very, very close friend of mine, former Superior Court judge in Massachusetts, Judge Ken Fishman, who was his partner at the time. I asked him, did you know about any of this? No, I didn't know of any meeting. I didn't know that he was going to a meeting. Frankly, I'll be honest with you, if he was going to such a meeting, Kenny would have been with him because Kenny was the brains. Lee was the balls. Kenny was the brains. Just like in John's case, John Mitchell, who was one of the greatest legal minds in the world, he was the brains, I was the balls. So we switched roles. But I can't say he didn't go there. So all right, let's say he did. We got to go forward and then start saying, does any of this stuff make common sense? Does it track with other facts that we know, like when Bailey died versus when Capisci, and apparently Gravano saying he's basing some of his stuff because Capisci wrote an article. Capisci wrote an article on April 22nd, 2021. Sammy the Bull, Gambino hitman Joe Watts was a rat against John Gotti. And it goes on, and he says, Gangland found Bailey, who was disbarred in 2001 and is working as a legal consultant in Yarmouth, Maine on Monday. That's 4/19/21. Okay? He died a couple of months later, Bailey. And he died a very hard death, if you will. He was on life support. He was in a mess, and he was not in Yarmouth, Maine then. He was in Atlanta with his son. And he died in a hospice there in Atlanta, like I said, just a matter of weeks after this. So I don't believe, unless Capisci can come up with a tape of that conversation, that it took place. And frankly, if it did take place, then if Bailey actually said those words, he absolutely did not know what he was saying and I don't know what this is all about or why he would even suggest that. Other than he might have been aware from his work with Joe Watts what was on those tapes. And certainly from the tapes, you could say, oh, yeah, I mean, these tapes are going to really hurt Sammy about Debono, about Melito, about, other guys. It's going to hurt him. It's going to hurt him bad. But the fact that he supposedly said, Bailey supposedly told Capisci, trying to get the date. I'm looking at this stuff. Yeah, he's writing about things that supposedly happened in 1991, in 2021, Capisci. And he's saying, and obviously it's based on shit he's hearing from, or stuff he's hearing rather. Edit that out, please. Stuff he's hearing off of Gravano's podcast and maybe whatever conversations these two rats had. One, he says that Bailey and Gravano had a memorable face-to-face meeting 4.5 years earlier. This is after Joe Watts pled guilty in 1996. Supposedly, they had a meeting, and according to Capisci, John said, look, we can do anything. These guys here will take a fall for me. And Bailey supposedly said, I saw Gravano give him an oh yeah look. I turned the case, he says, I turned the case down. And then Gravano called the FBI. That's his statement. Impossible. The timing is completely off. Okay, he didn't. If there was a meeting, and that's with a capital I, it would have been in that 1 week period between the end of July and the beginning of August, when the new lawyers come in. He didn't flip for another several months, 4 or 5 months after that. And he didn't leave until November. This is the beginning of August. This is the end of July. What took him so long? It just, here's the other thing. There's no way, and of course everybody's dead. Bailey's dead. Frankie Lowe's dead. John's dead. The only person alive now that can make up the story is Gravano. That's it. I can tell you this. What I can tell you without any question, and I mean it, and I'm saying with all the sincerity I can possibly bring to this conversation. The thought that John Gotti would ever say, look, these guys will take the fall for me. Don't worry about it. We can win this case. They'll take the fall for me. It's an impossibility. Those words would never come out of his mouth. John would have taken the fall in 2 seconds if he thought Sammy and Frank could go home to their families. 2 seconds, he would have done it for them. Never the other way around. His constant, I don't want to call it a rule. It wasn't, a rule, but this was his mindset, his credo was, we're in this together. We fight this, we go down, and we win together, or we lose together. The thought of he's going to put somebody under the bus, that he's going to do something to hurt somebody, impossible. I mean, I can tell you this from my experience.
I have a question on that. You ever hear John say that? We're in this together? We go in together? Okay.
Absolutely. First time I met him, when he called me in to become Frank's lawyer. And Frank and he called me in. I have a meeting with him and Frank. And I'm trying to think who else was there. I don't think Krieger was there, but John Mitchell might have been there because he was the brain part of the Lacasio team, and he was a partner of Jimmy LaRosa's. He said to me, and he didn't have to say it because I know it from his reputation and from the way he handled himself, the way he carried himself. He said, look, you understand something. If you come in this case, we are together. We go down as one or we win as one. You never, ever, ever separate us anyway. Whatever is going on, if it would help me and hurt Frankie, don't ever say that. If it would help Frankie and hurt me, again, don't ever get up and give one of those, this is only against my client, against the other guys, not against my client. And he made it very clear. These are the ground rules here. We are together. We'll die together or we'll live together, one or the other. And so the thought that he would have said in front of Bailey, who he didn't know, had no idea other than reputationally, he never would have met him at all. And in front of Frank Lacasio, who definitely never laid eyes on him and hated the sight of him, and told me throughout the trial at the time that I knew him, that he thought that Joe Watts had made a huge mistake hiring, because at that time, remember, during this time we're talking about, Joe Watts was under indictment and he hired F. Lee Bailey. And that was all done through a close friend of Joe's and a very good investigator by the name of John McNally from New York. Basically put him and Joe together. That there's no way John would have ever uttered words like he's quoted as saying, or even close to those words, that don't worry about it, as long as I'm okay, these guys will take the fall for me. And then supposedly Sammy, I realized he's going to throw me under the bus, so I got to make the first move. Nonsense. The whole thing.
Yeah. You know, and if I could interject, because before they were even arrested, on the wiretaps, when John is speaking with Frank, they're having a discussion about lawyers and things like that, and John is telling Frank long prior to being arrested, we got to stick together. We can't let these lawyers, be separating us and things like that. John's on tape saying that. I would also say, in Sammy Gravano's book, page 279, 279, second paragraph, Sammy's talking about a story where he goes to John asking for a severance. Okay? And Sammy quotes, this is Sammy right here. But when he asked for permission to seek a severance so that he could attempt a defense without directly contradicting Gotti, Gotti refused. And Gotti said, we're all in this together. I got to think of the future of the family. I got to think of the future of Cosa Nostra. That's in Sammy's book, page 279, second paragraph. I got to think of the future of the family. We're all in this together. Sammy's words.
Yeah. I mean, again, John had several trials before this. Those were the rules in those trials. Whether it was the Carpenter case or whether it was the one in Eastern District, everybody understood. And I knew that before I ever sat with him in February of '92. I knew what it was going to be like. I knew that. And another thing he would say, we're never ever going to have a meeting. Don't ever come here and to talk to Frank unless we're together. And don't ever come and dig me out and not bring Frank. Never. That would be like, it was like, okay, I got it. I got the message. Believe me, I'm not gonna. That's never gonna happen. But
let me
story. Sorry.
Pose another question for me. So I'm just trying to put a timeline on your relationship with Bailey. So we're going to talk about maybe, let's say, I'm going to guesstimate about 14 or 15 years before this case with John and Sammy. And Ricky 15 years you knew him, was associated, business partner, etc. Right? Now, after this case, after John gets convicted, you're still in contact with Bailey up until the O.J. Simpson case, at least, right?
Oh yeah. During that case, I was on the phone with him almost every day because there were certain witnesses, not every day, but during the part where they were bringing these FBI witnesses in, there were supposedly experts about blood, about clothing, and about this, and I had cross-examined these guys in other cases and sent them, my information and discussed with them ways that they could go about cross-examining these guys, and some of them were pretty effective, but. Be it as it may, even years after that, we would see each other. My daughter, her middle name is Lee. That's how close we used to be.
What's that?
My daughter's middle name is Lee. Michelle Lee Cardinale. And Lee, she was born when I was still with just left Bailey. I wasn't even with him. But that's how close we were. So, and later on in life, we weren't that close because he just was out of, once. You got to understand something too. During this time that we're talking about, '92, and when he starts representing Joe Watts, another thing that crosses my mind looking at this stuff afresh today, why wouldn't the government have sought to get rid of Bailey, disqualify him as Joe Watts' lawyer, if he had these kind of conversations with Gravano? That would be a grounds to disqualify him. If you came in and you were going to represent somebody and you had a conversation with them, I can't now represent as a lawyer, if I sat with you, let's say, and we talked about your case, and then whether you hire me, you don't hire me. Now let's fast forward. I'm going to represent somebody you're going to be a witness against. I can't be the lawyer in that case because I might use stuff that I'm not supposed to use. How do they know? So there's another reason why this conversation could not have taken place, because he would have been disqualified as Joe Watts' lawyer.
Yeah, he's got to waive conflict, I guess, right? He would have to waive.
I guess he could. I mean, he could, but again, none of those. There was never a motion made like that. Never. He never ever said, Gravano, until now, that he had these great conversations with F.D. Bailey. Bailey, was there when John said, "Don't worry about it. We're going to win the case because these guys are going to take the heat from me."
Okay, so my question is this: we're gonna take this timeline of almost 30 years that you know Bailey, but when you
here's the thing. Before we go there, I don't want people to think that because I'm some kind of a fan or something that I have this folder behind me and John's photo, but these are letters that went back and forth and cards and for all kinds of stuff between he and I. And in these in these conversations, which I'm not going to share with anybody, his concern always was about everybody but himself. Always. Never, ever once about anything about him, about how he's being treated, about how tough the situation was, about I got wrongfully convicted, or what was me, Sammy did it. Never. Not one time did he ever express anything that suggests that he would have done something like Gravano is saying now. That he said in front of Gravano, "Don't worry, they'll take the heat from me. I'm going to stay. I got to stay out. I got to be the boss here." That was so far against his thing. But get back to Bailey. Yeah.
Yeah. So my point to you is you've had a very tight partnership, business relationship for multiple decades, where this case was probably somewhere in the middle. You had a family, personal relationship where you named your daughter, middle name you said, is Lee, him. Now, outside of lawyers speak that like everybody else in coffee clutches, everybody has this coffee clutch. Did Lee Bailey ever tell you about that meeting? 1, 2, that John Gotti'S rat for saying that. 3, that Gravano said after to Bailey at any time he was thrown under a bus. And all these circumstances, all these years, and Lee was a drinker, right? Yeah. When you do a little bit, sometimes it's like truth serum. So besides the personal relationship you had, and what he had with other partners that you know of that contacted him, is that been ever that Bailey said, "I can't believe what came out of John Gotti'S mouth. This guy sacrificed his friends and let go and let them take the fall." Could that never happen?
And you got to remember too. You got to remember something. And if I didn't mention it, I should have. During John's trial, Bailey was there several days. I had 2 seats in that trial. It was like the hottest ticket in town. There used to be a line outside the courtroom, literally from inside the courtroom all the way outside down the street for people trying to get in to watch the trial live. And Bailey took my seats when Gravano was on the stand for both direct and cross. So he was there for a week. I don't forget how long Sammy was on the stand between direct and cross, but it was several days. We had dinner every night. We spoke together every night, hours. You think if you're going to say, "You're never going to tell me," that's the time to tell me something about Gravano. If he ever had any connection like this, that's when I would have heard it. Never, not a word. And it would have come, he would have told me. Let me just put it that way. It wouldn't be anything he would hold back from me. We didn't have like secrets like that. What's the big secret? He says, according to Capisi, a week or so, 2 weeks before he dies, he says, "That's when I decided to get out. I don't want the case." Forget it. First of all, I know one thing. If they had offered him the case, he would have jumped on it like a dog jumping on a bone.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? he would never have declined the case. Let's put it that way. That's why I don't think he ever was. Huh?
My question. That was my next question. and let me lead you into it. All right?
Go ahead.
You may, counselor. Okay.
I anticipated it. If you're going to the question, I get to the questions. I'm sorry. I'm a bad witness. Lawyers are the worst witnesses, by the way. I'm sorry. There's a lot more stuff that you can probably use that I'm saying here, right? So I apologize for that. But go ahead.
This is good. You're giving us some great tidbits now. Yes, as an attorney, if a client wants to hire you, most of the time you're going to take the case. People represent the most reprehensible people on the planet at times because they need a defense. There's court-appointed lawyers because people can't afford one, etc. That you may not even like. You may despise the person, but you need then what your oath is, right? The Hippocratic oath, other stuff to go, right? So now you take a guy like Bailey. What kind of financial shape was he in
at that time? See, here's the problem. And again, I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but during this time that we're talking about, Bailey was in a huge problem in federal court in Florida, where he ultimately went to jail on a contempt. It did like 6 months before he could raise the money to get out. So if you want to know where he was financially at the time, again, this is all, I'm not talking out of school. This is all fact. You can check it out, the case, etc. I can give you all the information.
All right, folks. More or less, I know that's haphazard doing all this. I had enough of that. More or less, what he's saying is that there was it was never uttered that John Gotti told Sammy the Bull Gravano, hey, listen, you got to take the rap for this, blah, blah, blah. Well, listen, Sam, the streets need me. I'm the boss. You take the fall and everything else. It was never uttered. That's Sammy the Bull Gravano over there on his channel. Now, Sammy the Bull Gravano was interviewed many times. It was even in his book that John said, we all go down together as one, or we win together, we lose together. John Gotti was from that fabric. Sammy the Bull was from the fabric that he killed all his business partners, just a bad actor running around and just totally insanity, and how the court system works and how the feds work and everything else. And it's just complete insanity. And there's still 20 more minutes left of that video, but my hand was getting tired. But more or less, now that Anthony Cardinelli, high profile guy, the guy's got nothing to gain by it. I would write a book if I was him. You know, I'd write a book. But since this YouTube is gone, mob channels and everything else, and all those subscribers Sammy the Bull Gravano has, and all his little fans, you know. But the stories are great stories, but you get a little more knowledge and historical information on what really happened in the trial, because you just heard it from the lawyer, who he's never came out and spoke ever. The guy's in his 70s, well-spoken, good-looking guy from New York. But it puts a little more light, big light, on what is what. Maybe you don't care. Some people don't care at this point in time. Sit there and listen to Sammy the Bull tell all his bullshit lie stories. And, you know, he'll put you to bed at night with a bottle and burp you, and you can fall off to sleep while Sammy the Bull Gravano's feeding you a line of bullshit from here to Timbuktu. That's what you guys like. God bless you. I'm on a little higher plane of intellect and knowledge, okay? So you go, you little Sammy the Bull Gravano punks. you go over there and he'll put you to bed with a nice story, okay? I'm old school for real facts. If you look like you're shaded and you're whatever, I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear your stories. All that bullshit. So that's on the Mikey Scars channel. And we conversated a few times when I was talking to him before, I think I was talking about Angel Gotti and John Gotti or whatever it was, but Mikey Scars was rolling with them back then. And he's got a good host, RJ Roger, and they had their lawyer there. And it's one of the greatest informative podcasts and shows pertaining to this YouTube channel, social media stuff about John Gotti and Sammy the Bull Gravano, two of the most recognizable names in mob lore. But even if you do see the facts about that trial and Sammy the Bull Gravano, most of you punks will still go run back and listen to Sammy the Bull Gravano because you're little punks, okay? Please forgive me. Please forgive me. You know, you'll take candy even if it's from the devil. That's where your little 20-year-old, 30-year-old, 40-year-old minds are, or 50-year-old minds. That's your intellectual plane of knowledge and IQ and intellect. Well, Joe, he tells good stories, and yeah. Lucifer tells good stories too. Punk asses. They should take all the mob channels off of YouTube. Yeah, they should take them all off. That's all. But that's Anthony Cardinelli, Mikey Scars, and RJ Roger. And check that out, you little Sammy the Bull Gravano punks. Check that out and see what your hero is all about. Maybe you already know he's a rat bastard and you don't care. Because your lifestyles are into more. Sell your soul for more. So please forgive me. It just pisses me off because I'm old school and I used to hear what the old timers used to talk about and how people just went and did their time and they took it like a man. John Gotti never threw anybody under the bus. His position would be he would take the fall and let them all go. It wouldn't have to be like that. Not this cockamamie story. Sammy the Bull came up for Congress and all this other stuff. Like, oh, he told me to take the fall. So I went to the feds and read it. John Gotti would have been going to jail anyways. So look at the facts. I mean, come on. And you got to remember, Sammy the Bull Gravano was already in bed with the feds. You got to realize that's a great possibility. Not just the publicized time where you know in historical history that Sammy the Bull turned into a rat. I would guess if I was playing in a chess match and I had to come to a conclusion to get off an island I was stranded on, and if you come up with the right answer, you can get off of this Gilligan's Island, I would say, you know what? I probably believe that Sammy the Bull was cooperating long before the world knew Sammy the Bull Gravano was cooperating. He had so many murders on the street. He was killing all his business partners. A long trail of blood. And how did it seem? How this all turned out? That John Gotti would ever tell Joe Watts and Sammy, you guys take the heat. You take the rap, and I need to be in the streets, and you guys go to jail. No. And there's the lawyer. Watch the full video on Mikey Scars and RJ Roger, and you'll see the truth about your mob hero, Sammy the Bull Gravano. Sammy the Bull Gravano. But, okay, in your defense, Sammy the Bull Gravano fans, it's entertainment. The world has a insatiable appetite for mob stories and everything else, you know, and that's understandable. Everybody likes a good story, no kidding. But I haven't watched a video of Sammy the Bull Gravano's in a long time because I don't even care if he could tell a good story. He makes up half of them. He can't remember his name. He's got prompters. He's got writers. He's got editors. He's got everything under the sun. And then he's got total recall about something that happened at 10 o'clock in the morning in 1969. And he's got total recall. Please. So thank you, folks. There you have it. I appreciate the support you give me. I wanted to do this early in the morning and get it off my chest. You know, I'll just keep pumping. Just keep riding with me. I'll ride with you. I hope you could hear the dialogue from me holding the phone like that. Maybe this is just a butchered video and you couldn't even hear what Gotti'S lawyer was saying. I hope not. I hope you heard it. So thank you folks out there. It's Sunday. Let's do some Jesus calling. Quick paragraph, any page, boom. Keep walking with me along the path I've chosen for you. You desire to live close to me is a desire to my heart. I could instantly grant you the spiritual riches you desire, but it is not my way for you. Together, we will forge a pathway high up the mountain. The journey is arduous at times, and you are weak. Someday you will dance light-footed on the high peaks, but for now your walk is often plodded and heavy. So just take the journey. The steps get deep and heavy, but at some point in time, we'll lightfully dance on the high tops of the mountains. So stay strong, folks. It's not partly cloudy, it's partly sunny. And mob stories are entertainment, but it burns to just know how I shouldn't let it get to me because I just enjoy other things in my world than this mafia bullshit. I enjoy a regular life out there, but to see like old timers that I know that are in their 70s and 80s that were high positions and they're still living today, and boy, you think I get pissed off? Sammy the Bull Gravano's out there in a cave somewhere in Arizona. Mike Francis is out there in a fortress out there in California. The two biggest names. Your heroes, folks. Mike Francis and Sammy the Bull Gravano. Proven mob informants. FBI informants. You're heroes. You're heroes. They're a contradiction to that life. But they'll give you the candy and you'll eat it. So that's your prerogative. God bless you, everybody. I better stop this video before I start saying things I don't want to say. Bye.